China's little rover, the Jade Rabbit, is busy on the moon's surface after a successful landing last weekend, but that little rover is causing a huge reaction back on Earth, exciting a whole new generation of young people in China about space exploration. Dr. Gregory Kulacki has promoted dialogue between experts from the U.S. and China on nuclear arms control and space security. He's a senior analyst and the China project manager at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Dr. Kulacki, thank you so much for being with us. Do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You know, I think my first question for this whole story, it's exciting. We remember how excited we were all those many years ago when we put a man on the moon. But why would China want to at this point, 37 years after the last lunar soft landing?
Well, this is a next step in a decades-old program that the Chinese started back in the mid-1980s. And they made a decision back then to invest heavily in a comprehensive space program. And the lunar robotic program is just one part of that program. There are many other things that the Chinese are doing in space as well.
Oh, well, tell me about some of those other things then.
Well, they have the human lunar program where they're building a space station similar to what the United States did, say, with Skylab in the 1970s. They're developing their own GPS constellation. They're putting up their own Earth observation and reconnaissance satellites, communication satellites, and they're going to be eventually doing deep space exploration as well. So it's a whole suite of programs that China has underway. The lunar program, though, has received a lot of attention.
Oh, and indeed it has, but I understand one of the objectives is mining. Can you tell us more about that? And as I understand it, Congress has forbidden NASA from interacting with the Chinese, so how might that affect the Chinese space program?
Well, those are two very interesting questions. Let me take the first one on mining. Back in the 1970s, when we established a relationship with China, we gave them a small piece of a moon rock. China split that moon rock into two halves, and they gave one half to a guy named Ouyang Ziyuan, a geologist. And he's been the sort of godfather of this lunar exploration program. And it's been his dream for a long time to be able to go to the moon and collect his own set of moon rocks. And eventually, later on in this mission, about 2017 or so, China will go and collect its own moon rocks and bring them back to China. Now, on the second question of cooperation, there is a group in the U.S. Congress, led by retiring Congressman from Virginia, Frank Wolf, a Republican, who feel that it's not right for the United States to cooperate with a country that has the human rights record that China has, and they're also concerned about technology transfer. So they've written into law a variety of different restrictions over the course of the last 20 years that basically forbid any contact between NASA and American space professionals and their counterparts in China.
And is there concern that the technology that China is developing with this exploration could be militarized in any way?
Well, military applications of space are part of any country's, spacefaring country's suite of programs. China has worked on anti-satellite weapons. And of course, communications, GPS, and reconnaissance satellites all have very concrete military uses. But the lunar exploration program is really a science mission. And I don't think that there's any military utility in anything that China is doing on the moon right now.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I wonder what you make of course, this was true in the U.S. when we put a man on the moon. There were conspiracy theorists that said that we never did it, that it was staged, and that has happened again. Are you surprised by that?
No, I think there's always going to be people who look upon these things skeptically. When China first sent back, with Chang'e 1 mission, sent back their pictures of the moon, there was a controversy in China because some of the images looked similar to some of the images that the United States has collected. And there were folks in China who were saying, oh, the mission isn't really successful. They're just giving us old images and recirculating them. So there's always going to be a group of skeptics and conspiracy theorists who attach themselves to these high-profile media events in space.
And finally, should the China space program give a little kick in the pants to the U.S. space program?
Well, the Chinese program is really technologically, in some ways, decades behind the United States, although it's hard to compare things from the two eras because the technology now is so much different. And of course, the technology that China is using to accomplish things we accomplished 30 years ago is quite different technology. But no, I don't think that the Chinese program is really a challenge to the United States in any meaningful way.
Okay, Dr. Gregory Kulacki, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We do appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here.